Hi, Anne-Marie. Hello.
I am so excited for everyone to meet you. So I want to give a little backstory.
Sure.
Last week, Lucy and we connected on Facebook, which I spend very little time in these days, but we connected on Facebook in this community that we're a part of. And we scheduled a time to talk, and we hopped on a call last Friday. And I don't even remember really saying hello. You and I just sort of popped in and started chatting. And next thing you know, it was like 45 minutes later, it was like coming up for air. We're like, oh my God, there's so many great things we talked about. And so
That's so deep.
go deep and go quick. And I just adored you, and you and I were completely aligned, and you had so much wisdom, and it was just so fun talking to you. And my only regret is that we didn't record that call.
I know, right?
Yeah. So here we are. We're gonna have a redo.
We are. It's gonna be
so
good.
One of the things that I love, for those of you who are listening in, about Lucy, is that she is doing this work that I think is so profound. And I wish, well, I don't even wish, I can give it to my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And, I focus on working with parents and young adults.
Mm-hmm.
Lucy, you focus on working with young adults. And this process you created called the Shine On process, I think is so simple and so profound and such a gift to young people that I want you to jump right in and tell us a little bit. Well, you know what I think would be fun? I think it'd be fun if you told us like how you got to the process, like what opened you up to it.
Okay. So, yeah, how I got to the process, my career is in marketing and communications. Yeah, I went to school for that, and I worked in marketing for a long time. And then right around the time that I started my family, social media came on the scene. So I got married in 2006, and Facebook was just starting to be something people knew about. And so I was paying attention to that while starting my family. I had two kids, 2 years apart. And when I came up for air, let's say in around 2011, 2012, the world was very different. Like it had just completely changed. When I had gone to school, marketing was about print materials and sales kits and all these different
Yes.
materials, paper.
Uh-huh.
And then when I was going off and getting married and having my kids, like here in Canada, where I'm from, we have 1 year maternity leave. So just to bring context, like I was gone a year, and then I came
Wow.
back, started working, and we planned for our second, and went off again for a year, and then came back. So
Wow.
like that's a huge time to be away. But I was on the periphery, paying attention, seeing, getting a Facebook account, having a Twitter, having a YouTube, like, just seeing things emerge, seeing this social media and people organizing themselves a certain way. And I have a certain kind of listening of my world, because I'm in communication. So I was noticing, influencers. I was noticing people just doing their own fun thing, and I was learning about how to monetize on YouTube, all these different things, right? And I would pay attention very closely to the really powerful aspects of marketing, like that authentic voice is
Mm-hmm.
very important. And it became that I noticed that in social media land, you're exposed and you're vulnerable, and the only thing you trade on is that currency is your authenticity, because people can really understand, like, sorry, they can identify a fake pretty quickly. Right? Like that,
Mm-hmm.
these are instinctual gifts that we have as human beings, that we react to a person, their tone, their body language, their facial expressions, like we know within split seconds. It's scientifically proven that if you can trust someone, it's in a microsecond that's
Wait a minute. Okay.
great.
Whoa, wait,
Yeah.
say that again, because
Yeah.
you're triggering a bazillion thoughts for me right now. Like,
Sure.
so we know scientifically, we know that we can spot a fake in an instant,
Yes.
but is that in the unconscious mind or the conscious mind? And are our kids, young people, also spotting those fakes? Because like you
Oh
have
yeah.
two kids, you have young
Right.
kids.
Mm-hmm.
How old are your kids? Tell everyone.
Daughter's 12, my son's 14.
Right. So they're still early, young
Yes.
enough, right?
Yeah.
They're new to technology.
Yeah.
Are they like my kids are on my 17-year-old daughter who's been using technology for a number of years, sees like these YouTubers and these influencers or whatever. And I'm not sure she knows the difference between a fake
Right.
and authentic.
And that's where I'm going with what we're talking about, is that I noticed that that's what I could do. Like, and so this is where I'm taking the conversation, where Shine On, where it came from. We're gonna land the plane. I'm gonna get you there. So I have that education and training, and I grew up in a world that was not digital, right?
Yeah.
So my lens, my worldview, my life skills, my experiences bring me to a place where I see something online and I naturally question it, right? Like I scrutinize a little bit more. And you'll find that older generations don't really put a lot of stock in what they see online, right? It's not real. It's just,
Yes.
people playing around, entertainment, this type of thing. So we're seeing our world really shift, right? And I was seeing that in the like earlier parts of like 2012, 2013, 2014. I was seeing this, and I was seeing this emerge, that this authenticity was really the currency you could trade on and build your business. And I had clients looking for, I started doing consulting work and trying to help with websites, help with the storytelling, and like you're looking to grow your audience and magnetize people to your business. So you have to have something to say. You have to have a story. You have to have a editorial calendar and content calendars and schedules, and what social medias will you participate in? Oh, they all require you to participate differently with a different kind of tone or approach or voice. Like Instagram's more visual, all these things, right? And so I came up with a process. I'm going to show the picture of it. And this used to be a business development process. And I made it look
Oh,
like a board game on purpose, because I used to say, okay, we have to be really clear on these things in our business and our objectives. And then we go after it, and we have this part to just execute on. So this was getting clear, and this was taking action. So this is the Shine On method. This is what's called a clarity map. And this is my process. And so then,
so 1 second. So
uh-huh.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm
That's
having
okay,
all
you're
sorts
not.
of questions.
It's good. Let's go.
So the so you were seeing this as an adult from a business perspective, but somehow you became a parent, and you're watching these little ones in your life grow and evolve, and you're somehow seeing the connection between like a marketing business plan to like a life plan.
Right. Yes. Hold that thought so I can land the first plane. Then we're going to take off again, because hold on to that connection between the young kids and my children, and my training, like really my communications training. So my clients started asking me to work with their teenagers and their young adults, their college age kids, especially kids that weren't happy with what courses they were in and what track they had gone down, and what they were destined to come out of school with, like their commitment to all that. So I was very like, why would I do this? Why would I help with this? Like, what difference can I make? Like, I didn't understand the value that these parents saw in me in that kind of work. But what happened was they tell me stories about themselves and their own clarity in their businesses, and their own, like, discovering their own authentic voice in their business really required them to actually find their authentic voice in their life, like their purpose, their passion, their, all these things like dharma, mana. There's different names all over the planet for this, but I just seem to think that we don't talk about it that much. We don't really bring language to that with our young people. And so I started to really see, and this is where I'm going to bridge over into the next part that you mentioned about why did I see a connection to my parenting? Well, I noticed that a lot of parents will script that for their children. So the purpose, their voice, like who they are in this world.
Script what? I want you to be really specific here. And so I want anyone who's listening, like any parent who's listening right now, listen to what Lucy's about to say, because I think this is so important.
This is critical. So
as a parent, we
when
script.
you know, they're little and you kind of think they don't know anything. They come to this world and there's just this like mushy, soft, little squishy little love nugget that you play with and you take care of and feed and nurture and support. And one day they start talking to you and they're walking around and they're doing the things and like going to school and making friends and all these little developmental things are happening. And you're you're the primary caregiver. You are taking care of them, protecting them, nurturing them, guiding them. In the guidance, I feel we cross a line. So I found it, because I'm a communications expert, what I found difficult was to tell my kids who they are. So I would say, I don't know. And my kids would just like, I still remember the day my son's eyeballs went huge. I think he was in grade 1 and mommy doesn't know something. And I mean, and you have to be really confident and secure in yourself to lead in that kind of a discussion, an unknown conversation.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Right. And so I was telling my son, like, you came here, baby, like you came here with gifts and talents. Mommy can't possibly know what's locked up inside you. You have these, they're inside you to discover, and I'm here to support you. And
Mhm.
he's just like not having it, like you know, because it's so like a wild conversation. But he heard me. And then
Mhm.
it became a game. And like months and years later, it's still like, mommy, you know what? I'm really strong and I think I'm really good at sports. And like, because he could just whip a ball and like climb things. And like my son is very athletic. Both of my children are now very athletic, but there's just these things about them that I realized I had to get out of the way and they had to discover these things for
Mhm.
themselves. And what I had to do is bring a narrative, a conversation to this, right?
Yep. Yep.
So if we look at my process, getting clear on who you were as a business for me became, it's exactly the same. The framework was the same. And I was like, if I never, and if I treat my kids like clients and I treat them like, let's discover their authentic voice, I have to have a conversation with my son about, hey, what do you like to talk about? What are you curious about? Somehow we ended up in these science experiment YouTube channels.
Yes.
I don't know. I would have never Googled that. But I'm like, what
Yeah.
would you Google if you wanted to know anything? He was asking about what's in the middle of the earth and stuff like that. And like, well, we can find out. Let's get curious, right? And so I started doing the clarity mapping thing with my kids experimentally for fun because it was just all a conversation. And then it became, I just think all of parenting is a conversation. Like, I mean, yes, it's the nurturing and the physical shelter, clothing, food, education. Like, education's a function designed to bring out the best in our kids, like to guide them on the, like, to being the best kind of people in society and contributing the most and earning for that value that they provide, right? Like, so like, not to really blow this thing up, but just
Oh,
consider,
please blow it up.
if I'm going to blow it up, I'm going to blow it up big. Consider that you don't actually know what the world's going to look like in 20 years. And
Okay,
you're
wait,
going to,
wait, 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 wait. That, like, to me, that's so big and so important. So, like, pause. Like, I want us all as parents to like really root into that. Consider that you don't actually know what the world is going to look like in 20 years, because the truth is, we don't.
right,
We don't actually know what the world's going to look like tomorrow.
right.
I think it's really, that's such an important thing that you just said there.
So on top of that, I believe it's inauthentic, and I could go as far as defending and making a case that it's a lie to tell our kids that we know best who they should be in this world. I feel like
Yep.
it's a betrayal of their trust, and it's a betrayal of this contract we have with becoming parents. When
Yep.
we give ourselves over, like, I believe that I truly surrendered in the process of becoming a mother. Like, I just surrendered and I thought, I'm going to welcome these people, these beautiful souls that come here to this world. And they've got stuff to do. I have a funny story. It's a quick story. My daughter came to me in dreams.
Mm.
Okay. And then when she was born, when she was little, I used to tell her, I'm like, you used to wake me up, like recurring dream, same exact dream. And you used to talk to me through this dream. And I just really believe you really have a mission here. You were born for a reason. You're here to do big things. You're here to be the best version of you. That's your life's purpose. Like, what did you come? You have to become this person. I'm here to help you. Tell me what you think of when I say these things to you. And she's like, yes, mommy, I know. I did come here to do big things. So, like,
I love it.
like bold and enlivened, and she's just fierce, right? She's just this big personality. And then she's like, but I don't know yet. And I said, okay, well, you think of something, you got to tell mommy, because I'm dying to know. I want to help you become this person, right? And so over the years, she's now 12. She's got a list. I think we might be at like 15 career opportunities in front of her that we have to vet out.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, there's so many. There's so many. The love of animals comes through in about 6 of those jobs, like a veterinarian at the top of that list, and anything to do with animal care and all these different opportunities there. And then there's this whole like beauty and aesthetics thing. Like, you can't help it. If you go online at all and watch a YouTube channel,
Yeah.
you're a 12-year-old girl,
Yeah.
crafts and then the makeup artistry of certain influencers, like it's so imaginative, so creative. It's a wild world out there, right? So she's just,
That's so fun.
And so it's just really exciting to be out of their way. And then I'll tell you, my son, not so excited. Not
Say more
at
about
all.
that. What do you mean not excited?
The same thing that worked for my daughter doesn't work for my son. What it does
I
is actually
know.
kind of stress him out, right?
Yep.
And I have to constantly be saying, you don't have to know right this minute.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to guide and protect you. You're 14, you're not 25. I'm not going to be on your butt about getting a job and moving out or something. Is by the time he's 25. It'll be interesting. I'm with everybody in this parenting thing. Like, we're doing this together, right? I'm raising kids at the same time that I'm getting into this conversation. So it's very vulnerable to me, right?
Yeah,
Because
I get it.
I wouldn't
We're
want
in it.
that kind of scrutiny on my children ever, right? But I want to create freedom for them to be who they want to
Yes.
be. And what it was really important is to create that safety for them to experiment and discover and have the conversations, explore. Because then I get into, okay, well, let's Google some stuff. Let's look at TED Talks. I open their world up and make it bigger and explore. And then, like, for a while when my son was really little, I seriously thought he was going to be a doctor, because he used to explain to me what was happening after he swallowed and where the food was going and what it was doing. And then he said, and then I can feel it in my blood and I get energy. And I was just like, oh my
gosh.
He's
But
like
isn't it
6 years
like
old telling me how it all works.
what's so cool about youth in when we step out of the way as parents is when you leave space for their creativity and for non-judgment, right? Because you're not going in there and telling him he's right or he's wrong. That's what's happening with food. You're just like following him along on his creative journey of learning, right? This is the way he's processing it.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's so fun because they're lit up and you want to be part of that. So you said something earlier that I want to touch on because I think this is fundamental. You said a lot of things, but I want to pull this one piece.
Yeah.
You say all parenting is a conversation, and it's one of my quotes. It's one of the things I say.
Is it?
Totally.
We both say things. I love it. We're partners in this. This is fantastic.
This is like we're one mind. We're one mind.
We really are.
It's the interconnection. But I say parenting is leadership, and leadership is influence, and all of parenting is a conversation, and we're either having the conversation from a place of fear or a place of trust.
Yes.
And so how is it that you have gotten to this place of trust, right? Because there's so much fear in parenting, and the culture doesn't support us in trust. It supports us in fear.
Okay.
Because we
so-
want our kids to get the right education. We want them to be happy. We all want the same thing.
Mhm.
How do we
Okay,
get that
so-
fear out of the way?
So it's a little emotional for me. This is a brilliant question. I've never even thought to share this. So I'm really excited to share this, but it's really emotional for me. So when my kids were little, this is around that earlier time when I was talking 2012, 2013, something like that. I went out, hung out at my girlfriend's house. We drank tea, we talked, we caught up. I had left the house without my kids and was coming home really late. This is like a girlfriend that I can just chew on stuff for hours and we just go through everything. We had these beautiful conversations that last and last and last. So 1 a.m, I am rolling home in my neighborhood and I see 3 teenagers stumbling along on a sidewalk. And one of them is completely inebriated, incapable of walking. And they drop him. And he fell really hard. And this is me driving down a street and noticing really in the distance on a sidewalk that this is happening. And then I get closer. And at that point they had stood up and lifted him up, but then they dropped him again. And this time he fell hard and his head hit the curb. And like the sidewalk curb corner, because they were waiting to cross the road and they just dropped him. It was a really bad scene. And I was just sitting there and at this point I've driven past them. And I got really hot. My whole body got really hot. And I was like, seeing that, how could I just go home? Right? So I couldn't. So I turned my car around and I'm like, I'm going to invite 3 teenagers into my car, complete strangers. And I said, yeah, I am going to do that. So, and I have 2 little ones at home and I need to be a mother to them too, and I don't know what's going on, what scene this is. Like, I don't know who they are. Right. But, you just call on your faith and you realize like life in the world and everything else, that interconnectedness, that's where I get my trust, my faith. Okay. So pulled over, offered the kids a ride. I realized that it's 2 boys and a girl, and the girl is absolutely in tears. I didn't see that from so far away, but her shirt is soaking wet from crying, trying to hold him and trying to get him home. So they get into my car and they were freaked out at first, but they needed the help. And I said, I'm here to help you. And I can take you to a hospital. I can take you to his house to talk to his parents. Which one am I doing? And they said to his house, because it was, I guess, around the corner. And then, I mean, through her tears, they're in the car now and I'm driving and they're telling me where to go. And the girl looks at me and she's just sobbing. She's like convulsing because this is really overwhelming her, this experience, right? With the too much drinking and everything else. And she's like, why did you stop? No one stopped. No one helped us at the bar. No one helped us. Why did you stop? And I said, I didn't stop for you. And they're like, and I said, I stopped for his mother. Because if that was my son.
Yeah.
Right. And that's when I realized, like, I mean, that's why I show up in this work. I'll show up for the teenagers that I don't even have teenagers at that level yet, but I know that there's a confidence that you can have as a parent when you understand that we're all in this together.
Yeah.
If we're not all showing up for each other's kids, if it's not the village, if I can't drive down the road and see a kid that needs help and actually not be afraid. I mean, I was afraid. I went home and I got in trouble from my husband. He's like, what are you talking about? And just like imagining 3 teenagers and this whole scene. And I'm like, I'm in the driver's seat. I felt safe. I wasn't in any danger. And, it was just one of those things. And when I told her that I was showing up for that child's mother, I realized when I said that, I actually said something a little bit bigger than just what was happening in my car in that moment with that kid.
Yes.
And we got to the house and we rang the bell and the parents came down and the kids had to explain everything. And all I said was I just needed to get them home safely to you to deal with, and I'm out. Like, I don't need to be judging and casting my opinions on the situation. Like, who doesn't know that kids drink or experiment with drinking, right? So that was that. And then we
And
never
that
exchanged
was,
names or anything. I don't know what their names were, nothing. I actually don't remember what streets I turned down because it was all very in the moment and very emotional. But I came home and I realized that that was not an experience that was just about that moment with that kid,
yeah,
and so
that was
that's
a life, that was one of those life-changing moments
right.
for
So like,
you.
yeah. So when you ask me, like, well, yeah, I have this awareness of it because I think that in marketing, you're trained to create campaigns in the future, right? Like, there's no commercial that happens. Like, we don't like wake up in January to think about the Super Bowl commercial that's going to run. Like,
Mhm.
they're doing that in July and August. Plan, like, you're 6 months out minimum from even a year for a lot of things. Like, you're planning out into the future. And so I kind of have this, like, my brain flexes that way. It's just like future focus. What is the impact of this action, this decision, what I say, what's the impact of it in the future? And so as a parent, since they were little, I used to think about, well, how is that going to help them if I say this? So like,
Yeah,
it does not help them if I say I know everything and you have to listen to me and I'm going to tell you how it's going to be. It doesn't
yeah,
help them. It
yeah,
doesn't help them to make decisions for them. I think something really cute that we touched on Fridays, when I told you I don't clean up after my kids. I
yeah,
literally do not touch any of their stuff or put anything away.
yeah,
And we have rules in the house about how we live as a family in our home. And when you're in a living room and you take off your socks and your hoodie and you put your phone down and your backpack is spilling out with all your books and this and that, like, it's very clear you have been here in this room. But
you have
when
an
you're
impact.
yeah, and then when you're done living in this room, you leave it nice for whoever else is going to come and flake out on the couch and chill out and put the TV on or whatever else is going to happen. So you leave the space the way that you found it. Like, you leave it nice for the next person. So you take responsibility for those things. So I stopped tidying up after my kids at the same time that they learned how to make messes. If they
Hmm.
dumped the bin of logos, they were picking up the bin of logos before we left the room.
Yeah,
Legos,
Legos.
Legos.
I was like,
See
oh,
how this works?
they say that
Legos.
differently in Canada.
The marketing thing is still like, man, it's logo, it's Legos.
Legos.
I'm doing it again. But that's the kind of thing that I was like, there's impacts to doing it for them. And I'm in a really interesting conversation at 12 and 14 right now, because my kids are constantly pointing out to me that their friends have no control or clue of the impacts of them taking certain
Yeah,
actions.
yeah,
And that, like, there's a lot of like safeguards around kids um, to prevent them from making mistakes, really. um, my son has started high school and he's just like, I get to go down whatever hallway I want to get to class. And
yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. I said, why? And he's like, oh my goodness, in elementary school they control the traffic. Like, you can't
Mhm.
even, if you're in the wrong area of the school, wrong hallway. He used to feel so like he used to be personally offended at the lack of trust that we have
Yeah,
with young people. He couldn't even, what if I wanted to take the long route around because I had time and it's raining and I went to the washroom? If I just wanted to stretch my legs and take the long way back to class, oh no, I would be in trouble because you know, he just, there's no trust. He used to notice that and he's talk about how there wasn't any trust. And so I feel
Lucy,
like we need to do that more. We need to trust the kids more. We need to listen to them more. We need to give them a chance more to navigate their lives themselves so they can have the practice of
mhm,
making decisions, learning what the impacts are, so that when they are adults, when they're teenagers bridging into adults and young adults, it's like they're learning consequences for the first time. And I
uh-huh,
am not surprised that the anxiety, depression, even suicides are all on the rise, like, really. And like, the safetyism in our culture with the kids, it's like they don't get to flex these muscles. They don't get to learn the resilience that they've come with. Like, human beings. I mean, think of the arc of history, what we have survived and what we have created. And we arrive here today at this moment, and we create the future. And what do we want that to look like? And I don't know if it's more like safeguards and more controls and, like compliance and,
But
you know,
this is what we were saying a few minutes ago, which is it's about fear. All control comes from fear. And as
right, the
parents,
safetyism and yeah,
yeah, we want our kids to be safe. Right? Like there's
right,
nothing wrong with being afraid. Like that is just a normal human behavior.
right,
But if we can learn to just let go a little bit, surrender and trust just a little bit, it doesn't mean be foolish, irresponsible, and
right,
crazy. But if we can, like you did in that moment, right, where you trusted yourself, you like, I'm following my inner guidance. I'm going to do this thing, and I am just going to trust that I'm going to be okay, and I am here because this is this is the world I want to live in. I want to live in a
right,
world
right,
where I am mothering every child on this planet, not just my child. And that if I see a child on the street, that's my child too, right? And
right.
and I think like that was so profound what you shared in that story,
Yeah,
because we we are mothering one another all the time. I'm
right.
mothering you, you're mothering me. Like
And think
to
of
nurture is our nature.
right. And think of when you were growing up and you came into adulthood, was it really your parents that were guiding and loving on you and helping you figure things out? I mean,
Yeah,
I
well,
love parents, and we talked about how much influence parents have, and that was another statistic and stuff like that. But um, think about the people that really shaped who you became.
well, this is what I want to say this real quick. My parents were young, first of all, when they had their kids.
Mhm.
They had 4 kids. My mother was 18 when she had her first child, and 18 and a half when she had her second. My sister and brother born in the same year. Um, they were just getting by. They were
Right,
like working, earning a living, and like making sure we had food on the table and shoes and a coat on our back. And they loved us and they took care of us. But I don't ever once remember my parents saying, "Did you do your homework?" They cared, but they were, there was no like, I was sort of doing my thing. I was in my
you were
lane and they were in the,
responsible for your getting your education. Same
yeah.
with me. My parents immigrated from Poland. We were learning a whole new world, a whole new language, a culture. I spoke Polish at home with my parents. That's my first language, even though I'm born Canadian. There's all these things, there's all these layers to all of this. Um, and it's it's the whole community of what's going on. And I just feel like when we talk about our kids, I feel like we have this, they're my kids. They're like, it, it's like we're not aware that we're done raising them. Like
Well,
in
wait,
in the
yeah.
teenage years, in those teenage years, I'm sorry if this is going to be like really blowing it up again, but you're done raising your kids. Like you're done. The parenting job is winding down in many ways. You're not making the decisions for them. They are. You're not choosing who their friends are. They are. You're not choosing where they're going to go on a Saturday night. They are, and what actions they may or may not take. You kind of have till about 10, 12 to influence a lot of things, and then it's practice time for adulthood. It's training ground to hand over the keys and let them drive. And like you got to move over. And it's hilarious to me. I do have a visual that I use in my own brain to process. Sometimes when someone asks me a question, I'm trying to delineate, is the parent sitting in the passenger seat, in the back seat, or are they sitting, is their child sitting in their lap while their child's learning how to drive? Like
Yeah.
it's like I have a visual of a parent. Picture your teenager sitting in your lap while you're trying to teach them how to drive. It's kind
Yeah.
of like what I see in parenting. It's like you're not actually letting them like practice being a human adult person. Like you're just kind of, you're mushing and blurring up what that means. Like, and there's only one
And
person that can drive the car. Like it's just, you
but
know.
But we come at it. I mean, this is such a great analogy because my kids are drivers and I couldn't teach them to drive because I was like,
I won't be able to teach mine either.
I hated it. I was in the
Like,
passenger seat,
terrified.
like the whole time. And my daughter's like, would you stop it? And I'm like, "Arr." And so it's such a great analogy for raising our kids because you are sitting in the passenger seat and you have little or no control. And all you can do is sit up, put your seatbelt on and give them some guidance and give them the keys
And
and
trust them, trust that
and
you've done your, you have
trust.
to trust yourself that you did a good job with them. And that
Yes.
when some obstacle comes, they are actually going to hit the brakes. Like, you know, like they're going to keep themselves safe, right? Like,
Yes, and because they care about their safety.
Yeah.
They care about their lives too. And
Yeah.
we have to, like, Lucy, I think that's so profound. And this is another thing I also say, this is the foundation of what I teach, is you have to trust yourself. You have to trust yourself. And I want to give permission to parents to be afraid. It's okay to be afraid. And
I'm totally afraid. You know, I'm afraid all the time. Like who my kids are gonna like gravitate towards, who's gonna magnetize them, who's gonna like influence them, who's gonna put thoughts in their minds. Like they come home, you should see the kind of conversations we have, and I'll just be like, they think I'm half interested and they've called me on it, and I'm like, I am not interested, because they don't hear me talking a lot.
right.
Like, I am in awe of watching you process this.
Yep.
And they'll be like, what? And I'm like, I don't want to bring language to this. I don't want to craft the story around this. Like, a certain thing happened. People made choices. There was consequences. I need to see how you like follow through, like follow the thread and get the details and process how, like, I'm in awe of how you're doing this. And the kid, sometimes they're like, oh, sometimes it just feels like you don't think it matters. And I'm like, it matters more to me that you know how to question things, gather information, arrive at a conclusion, take an action. It matters to me to watch and witness you work through this process. And they don't like it because I'm forcing responsibility on them.
Yeah.
And I'm following them. They're leading. So they get to, I need to see them map this logic. And if I don't like the mapping of the logic that I'm seeing, then I course correct. And I either have to expand something and make it bigger, or I need to contract it and zero in and focus in on something. So the micro and the macro.
Yeah.
Like, micro, or is it macro, big picture, right? So sometimes
Stay in the moment.
rule.
Stay in the moment.
Right. And so we're trying to do that. So I get out of the way and I try to witness, and it's just fun for me because I am a communications person at heart. Like, that is like totally like a gift I have. I know this because I stop all the time talking to witness what they're doing, and they don't like it or whatever. But then what happens is, in the moment, they might not like it. They might not like me. We might not have to go through the things. But in the end, what I have found over and over again is it builds their confidence. Their confidence causes them to really love me at another level. Like, they tell me, wow, mommy, you trusted me to figure that out. And it's like, I was always here. If you were going to F that up, I was going to fix it. Like, you weren't leaving this house with that first decision. Let me tell you that, you know? And they're like, oh, well, it didn't seem that way. And I'm like, I know it didn't. I had to walk away and wash the dishes because you were never going to see this face because I don't have a poker face. But I had to just like keep talking. I got stuff to do. I have to distract myself a lot of times so that I'm not there fixing and all the things, you know? Anyway, it's,
I want to ask, as we're about to close, because you and I could, as evidenced by our last two conversations, we could go on and on and on. And I adore you and I appreciate you. And I love the perspective that you bring to parenting, which is why I wanted to talk with you more about it. And I really do appreciate you mirroring trust back to me, you know, as you know, I want to say one thing about my kids are 17, 20, 23, and then I have 6 stepchildren who are older, and it's sort of in that range.
Mhm.
And trust gets harder the older they get, right? And so you're modeling how important it is to practice not trusting your kids, yes, so they trust themselves, which is fundamental, but also so that we can practice trust so that as they get older and they start making these bigger decisions, where am I going to go to college? What job am I going to take? Who are my life partners going to be? Am I going to drink and drive? Am I, like, all these big decisions that, you know, are going to set them on a certain trajectory in their life. And we, having the wisdom of having been there already, we can predict where that trajectory might take them based on these options they have.
Right.
And you know, the older they get, the more we have to trust, the more we have to step out of the way, and the harder I find it.
Mhm.
So I want to ask you, like, what is the one thing you most wish for your kids as they evolve and grow into adults?
Um, well, I wish, I hope for them that they become wholly, truly who they're meant to become, the best
Mhm.
versions of
Mhm.
themselves,
Yeah.
right? And when it comes to their relationship with me, I work really hard and I'm committed to them always being heard, always having
Mhm.
their voice be heard and their presence of who they are to be a bigger priority than anything my ego could get rattled up about,
Mm. Mm.
right?
That's
Like
beautiful.
I really don't care what it looks like to the external world.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about, well, what will people think? Or
Yep.
like it's really I want to use an analogy. When they were little and they were learning how to walk, if they stumbled and fell, was that a reflection on you? Were you a bad parent? Did you
Right.
like, they're going to stumble, they're going to screw up. It is not a
Yep.
reflection on you. It is a reflection on where they're at in their way of developing and processing things and making decisions. So if they screw up, like, take any example, it's a reflection of where they're at. And if you can take your ego out of it and say, well, let's look at this scenario. These are the choices they made. This is the information they gathered. This is the scenario that was in play. How do I help them see? So we do a thing that in marketing, like, I don't know, we used to call them postmortems or different, like, you'd run a campaign and then you'd look back, like, think of a Super Bowl ad. You created some sort of commercial, it ran, how popular was it, how successful was it, right? So if there is a little screw up, a fumble, some sort of a problem, something happened, they made choices, didn't go so well, do an analysis of it, run the scenario by, not in judgment, not through fear, anger, none of those emotions, in honoring who they are, who they're becoming, to help them do better next time. Like,
Yeah. It's
like,
be curious. It's like bring curiosity. And I
but
would
we
even
can't
go,
say it's like bring learning. Like, yeah,
bring,
and
yeah.
like expand it. Okay, so did you have all the information? Did you ask the right questions? Did you understand the impacts and consequences? And then you chose to make this decision based on what information? And then what the best thing sometimes when they're little, these things are funny and they're small.
Yeah.
Like, we've had
And they're part of the
scenarios.
process.
Yeah, but I've been doing this on little scenarios where little accidents happen in the kitchen, messes. It's like, well, the one time, I mean, I still remember we were cracking up, laughing. We were almost in tears. It was so funny because I remember just looking at my kids and something happened, a whole mess happened. Something fell off the counter, whatever. And I was just like, what did we think was going to happen? Like, what?
Mhm. Mhm.
How did we not see that cluttering up a bunch of things and then whatever it was, and we were all just sitting staring at each other, and it was hilarious because no one was really paying attention. And then the lesson was, you know what, it's really kind of dangerous not to be paying attention in the kitchen with knives and fire and right.
Yeah. But
So
I love this lesson that you
laugh
want
at
to leave
ourselves, like
with
learn
it.
from it, not be so heavy and serious. And then when you do it when they're little, like when they fall when they're little, their bottom doesn't hurt as bad as falling when you're a little bit higher up off the ground.
Yeah, and by the way, I use this analogy too. We don't yell at them. Why did you fall? What's wrong with you? You need a walking tutor. You need to practice.
You
Like,
need a walking tutor. I love you.
it's like we fall. That's how we learn to walk.
Human people
We're
doing
just
things that are normal. I have to tell you, I want to leave you with a fun little story, because we talked about that authentic voice, and we talked about young people evolving through social media, and are they actually able to spot a fake and all this type of thing, right? Because there's a different kind of psychology, especially for young girls, that lead to eating disorders and all the things, the self-esteem issues and all those kinds of obstacles, when we see what we see online, and it's as if it's fact. We don't see the smoke and mirrors, and we don't see that it's the highlight reel, and a lot of work went into creating this type of person to look a certain way, or
right,
whatever. We don't see all the hard work that goes into somebody having a physique that is just like magazine runway worthy, whatever it is, whatever those beautiful aspirational things that we are admiring in those that we see online. I want to just suggest that on one hand, you should look at that and then look at yourself and believe for yourself that with that dedication, with work, if this is a priority for you, you could have a sculpted, beautiful physique if you want it.
yeah,
You have every opportunity to learn these things online. School is everywhere. The information is everywhere, right? But to just think that, oh, that person just woke up like that, and that's naturally just how wonderful they are. It is pretty dangerous, and we are getting into a world now where the filters and all these things, they look so remarkable, they look so real, that we are getting to a place now where we are blurring that line. And I do not think that any person, even grown-ups, that like myself, I mean, I knew what a filter was. I know that because in my marketing education, I also know about Photoshop. I've known that for, covers of magazines, like, that things can be retouched. And in another life, I used to actually teach Photoshop to photographers. So I really know what goes into and what's possible, right? But now we're getting into like AI and artificial reality. It's all these things that is blurring everything. And so I want to bring it back to that authenticity is inside you. You don't have to look externally. It's not out there. That's too much noise. It's a headache. It's a lot coming at you. Turn it off, be with yourself, get to know yourself, get to know what's inside of you. It calms everything down, it quiets everything down. It
mhm,
really puts the focus where it's supposed to be, right? And then when you
beautiful.
discover who you really authentically are, it's very hard not to like yourself, like,
I love that.
you know what I mean? Like, you can really,
Yeah.
like, when you really know yourself, you can be really inspired by yourself, for
When you
your talent.
discover who you really are, it's hard not to like yourself.
Because you really, like, I really, with all my heart, believe that everyone comes with a purpose, for a reason, with a gift, with something to offer and share. And it's not to be compared to someone else,
Mhm.
like, I
You're
went
at
through a
risk
lot of that.
when you compare, you're at risk for losing that connection to yourself. Because the
Right.
moment you start comparing, you are outside and you need to be continually looking in.
Yeah. And it's like a heart open kind of thing. Like,
Mhm.
I'm sure there are a lot of people better qualified, more education, more training, more practice, more skills, whatever it is, to lead a conversation in parenting. I'm sure there are way more people out there better equipped to lead a personal development conversation for young people. I'm sure. But at some point in the last few years, I woke up and realized I'm this kind of communications parenting unicorn thing crazy. And I think I
Yeah.
just want to kind of just like sprinkle my stuff out there and see what happens and play and have fun with people and do this fun thing that I call clarity mapping and teach them how to go in first and then go out into the world and do the thing, whatever their heart calls them to do. But it just, we need to bring it back in focus and in line and make it what it's really all about. And that
Yeah.
actually is much simpler
So simple.
and
So
so much
easy.
more fun, you know. And I really want, what I really want to do is teach this framework that Shine On offers so that people can actually share and be in that conversation with each other and say, hey, you know what, in this part of my clarity map, like this is what's coming up for me, what's coming up for you, and like be in this imaginative, creative space where we're just, you know, what do they call it? Life, the unfoldment.
The
Things are just
unfolding into your
constantly
true self.
right? And you're just becoming. And every day you wake up and you're becoming. And what are you becoming? And have some sort of a focus, a lens on that.
What a great gift. What are you becoming? Like if we can ask ourselves that question every day, who am I becoming?
Who are you meant to become in this world?
Yeah. Who am I
Who
meant
did
to
you come?
become?
Who did you come here to become? Like,
Yeah.
what's calling on your heart?
Love it.
Mhm.
This is what I want for my kids. This is what I'm encouraging. You know, I have a 23-year-old son who's trying to figure out what to do in his life, and he's in this big struggle between what the world says he should do, what he thinks he needs to do to earn money to survive and maybe buy that nice car that he's been dreaming about since he was 4,
Sure.
and then what he's passionate about, and what if I'm passionate about this, can I actually make money and like not only pay my bills but have some nice things, and like all of that at that stage of life can really cloud your ability to see clearly. So I really appreciate this clarity map that you've created, and I think it's such a gift.
So,
And
so when you're talking about your son, that's just, I want to just make it very real, very tangible for people. This is 7 questions. There's 14 steps. When you sign up to do the Shine On experience, you come into the space of me guiding you through the 7 questions and the 14 steps. It's predictable. You get a practice in the framework. And then what happens is it creates your playbook. So I believe
playbook. It's a playbook.
it's a playbook. It's
Not a
for sure a playbook.
workbook.
You know, sports like the football thing, the playbook,
Yeah.
like, yeah, you're not just on the court playing the game of life and it's just like life coming at you. No, you got a playbook. You got some stuff you're figuring out and you're constantly figuring it out. I'm 45. I'm still figuring it out, guys. New clarity map every year.
Unfolding, unfolding, unfolding.
So when you come into, if you come to lucycolangelo.com, you come into my world, you look at doing the Shine On experience, the clarity mapping is a part of the experience. You get all of this on demand. If you print all the PDFs, that assembles into your playbook. You get a binder, hole punch it, and you're off to it. And you've got a new framework of looking at your life. And you create, when you can create space around something like that and create a structure, like the framework of Shine On, what it really does is that structure is very freeing.
Yeah,
Like
freedom.
it's anchoring all those puzzle pieces here. They're anchors in your life. And so then you go out and you have experiences and then you do another lap in the infinite loop of life of the Shine On framework.
The infinite loop of life.
Yeah, you just keep going. You just keep going. And as long as you keep going, you're going to make it.
Lucy, you're amazing. I think everyone
I've loved every second of this.
This is so fun. I'm having the thought that we are going to do a workshop for parents, and I'm wondering, well, we should talk about this later, but if anyone's listening, if this sounds like a fun idea, let us know and maybe we can create experience, because I think this would be a really fun process to do with your kid. Like to do a workshop with your young adult or your teenager or whatever. So let's talk about that. But in the meantime, I am so grateful to have you again. We're going to do this again and more. And yeah, thanks for shining a light and being your bright, most authentic self.
Thank you. Thanks for creating this opportunity for me.
So fun to know you.